My name is Roger Weeks, and every year, the Black History Ministry brings to you presentations honoring and remembering the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And this afternoon, we will be remembering and honoring his work. Today, as you know, there's an attempt to change our history. You heard the word woke, you heard of cancel culture, and I'm sure that you've heard how the changing of our history has been packaged differently. There's always, we're in a struggle. You will hear today the struggle of Dr. Martin Luther King's day, that is tomorrow. We'll hear how it was a struggle to even get that day a national holiday. So today, Rennie and Medvis, and yours truly, will be sharing with you information regarding the struggle in getting this day a national holiday. On November 2nd, 1983, President Ronald Reagan signed the King Holiday Bill into law, designating the third Monday in January a federal holiday in observance of civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King. The legislation to recognize Martin Luther King's Day was first introduced just 4 days after his assassination on April 4th, 1968. Still, it would take 15 years of persistence by civil rights activists for the holiday to be approved by the federal government, and an additional 17 years for it to be recognized in all 50 states. Today, it is the only federal holiday designated as a National Day of Service to encourage all Americans to volunteer and improve their communities.
King Day rituals began in Atlanta with commemorative services held on January 15th at Ebenezer Baptist Church, which both Coretta Scott King and Ralph Abernathy attended. These events served as a template for federal holiday ceremonies. The day began with Martin Luther King III placing a wreath at his father's grave, followed by notable speakers. The congregation sang "We Shall Overcome." People drove cars with headlights on, and a black state senator introduced the King Holiday Bill for Georgia. Many of these activities became rituals on subsequent commemorations in Atlanta.
Hesitancy at the federal level. Despite the national fervor inspired by King's death, the bill to create a holiday in his honor languished for years with limited congressional support. However, Democratic Michigan Congressman John Conyers, who first proposed the bill on April 8, 1968, after receiving approval from Coretta Scott King, was not deterred. He continued to reintroduce the legislation every year with the support of the Congressional Black Caucus, which Conyers found helpful. Quoting Representative John Conyers, said on January 18, 2015, "To me, King is the outstanding international leader of the 20th century without ever holding office. What he did, I doubt anyone else could have done."
In 1979, on the 50th anniversary of King's birth, the bill finally came to a vote in the House. However, even with a petition of 300,000 signatures in support, the backing of President Jimmy Carter, the testimonials from Ms. King, the bill still was rejected by 5 votes in the House. Republican Missouri Congressman Gene Taylor led the opposition, which cited the cost of an additional federal holiday and traditions that exclude private citizens from receiving recognition with public holidays named in their honor.
Stevie Wonder helped honor King. Even though it failed to pass in the House, public support for the bill continued to grow, in no small part due to musician Stevie Wonder. The Motown singer and songwriter's 1980 album, Hotter Than July, featured the song Happy Birthday, which served as an ode to King's vision and a rallying cry for recognition of his achievements with the national holiday. Stevie Wonder said, "I just never understood how a man who died for good could not have a day that would be set aside for his recognition. In peace, our hearts will sing, thanks to Martin Luther King." Wonder continued to spread his message with regular appearances alongside Coretta Scott King at rallies. He also capped a 4-month tour with a benefit concert on the National Mall, where King delivered his famous I Have a Dream speech 53 years earlier.
More hurdles on the Hill. When the bill again made it to the House floor in 1983, 15 years after King's murder, support was overwhelming. Working together, Coretta Scott King, the Congressional Black Caucus, and Stevie Wonder amassed a 6 million signature petition in favor of the holiday. The bill easily passed the House with a vote of 338 to 90. However, when the bill moved on to the Senate, Republican North Carolina Senator Jesse Helms attempted to dismiss the legislation by submitting documents alleging that the civil rights leader harbored ties to the Communist Party. Outraged by the personal attack on King's character, Democratic New York Congressman Daniel Patrick Moynihan threw the more than 300-page binder to the ground and stomped on what he described as a packet of filth. After 2 days of debate, the bill passed in the Senate, and Ronald Reagan reluctantly agreed to sign it into law. President Ronald Reagan said on October 20th, 1983, quote, "I would have preferred a non-holiday in King's honor, but since they seem bent on making it a national holiday, I believe the symbolism of that day is important enough that I will sign that legislation when it reaches my desk."
In 1984, Congress established the Martin Luther King Jr. Federal Holiday Commission to coordinate the inaugural observation of King's Day and plan its celebration. Coretta Scott King, who originally opposed its creation, served as chair of the commission, which include members of Congress, presidential appointees, and prominent leaders from the business, labor, religion, civil rights, and entertainment sectors. The commission was charged with creating new traditions for the holiday. Ms. King was among numerous holiday activists who aimed to center the observance on Dr. Martin Luther King's philosophy of nonviolence, while President Ronald Reagan appointees sought to emphasize themes such as respect for the Constitution, Christianity, and the individual rights. One time, the Commission's influence waned as Reagan appointed Black conservatives to counter Black liberals within the organization. Coretta Scott King withdrew from public life. The Commission ultimately disbanded in 1996 after King's second son, Dexter, monetized his father's intellectual property and attacked the Commission for using his father's work, image, and likeness.
Statewide observances vary. Despite the holiday's federal recognition, statewide observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day is far from uniform. Some states include additional holidays, which are celebrated concurrently with Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Arizona and New Hampshire, for example, celebrate Civil Rights Day, and Wyoming celebrates Wyoming Equality Day. Other states, like Alabama and Mississippi, have combined the King holiday with Robert E. Lee Day to honor the birthday of Confederate General Robert E. Lee, who was born on January 19th. However, Dr. Martin Luther King Day has been recognized in all 50 states since early 2000. Coretta Scott King, an American civil rights activist, said in 1985 that no other holiday serves as a focal point for encouraging improved race relations. This holiday can help unify Americans in the spirit of Martin's dream.
A day on, not a day off. On August 23, 1994, the King Holiday and Service Act was signed into law by President Bill Clinton. Inspired by King's life of service, Congressman John Lewis and former Senator Harris Wofford proposed the legislation to encourage Americans to find common causes and methods of improving their communities. In honor of Congressman Lewis's initiative to make the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday a national day on, not a national day off, the National Museum of African American History and Culture has organized donation drives and partnered with supporters to provide music, film screenings, and interactive activities to the public.
So there you have it. How the struggle to have tomorrow a holiday. How many of you are off tomorrow? And it as a result of folks fighting to get tomorrow a day of remembering the Dr. Martin Luther King's work, a day to reflect, a day to assist in your community and support, and to continue the fight. Ladies and gentlemen, this kicks off Black History Month, which is coming up in February. We will continue to share our history, especially to the young people, so that the history would not be forgotten. Thank you for listening, and I hope that you celebrate tomorrow in many different ways. Thank you.
Wow. Even when you know some of these stories, it's amazing how much you find out what you don't know, and to hear it again. And it is part of the Judeo-Christian tradition. The whole of Christianity and Judaism is a religion of stories. And I want you to think about that as you read the scriptures. How many times in the book of Proverbs and in the book of Psalms and in the book of Ecclesiastes do you have this language of mothers or fathers teaching sons, right? They survived by continuing to tell the story of their people. And sadly, you're getting to a point where even public education, these stories are being suppressed even in public education. And so once again, the Black church, and I'm not just talking about the institutional Black church like the AME, I'm talking about churches with Black folks in them, are carrying on this ministry of not being silent, of telling the story of our people, because it's the story of God and God's interaction with humankind. And so I just want to bless that presentation with this prayer from the prayer book. It's a prayer for those who suffer for the sake of conscience, which we know Dr. King and some others who are activists and protesting regularly are facing. O God, our Father, whose Son forgave his enemies while he was suffering shame and death, strengthen those who suffer for the sake of conscience. When they are accused, save them from speaking in hate. When they are rejected, save them from bitterness. When they are imprisoned, save them from despair. And to us, your servants, give grace to respect their witness and to discern the truth, that our society may be cleansed and strengthened. This we ask for the sake of Jesus Christ, our merciful and righteous judge. Amen.